Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Management 503, Organizational Design and Innovation. My name is Ken Bandy, the instructor for the course. I'm so pleased that you've joined me. If you look on our screen, you'll see on the left side a copy of our syllabus. We'll scan our way through that here during this session. And on the right, you'll see a copy of our webpage, and we'll work our way through that. And that'll serve as our introduction to the course, a review of the requirements, the context in which we'll do it, the purposes for which we will do these things, and then how they will work their way through our lives on the schedule on the course website. You've obviously found the course website, or you wouldn't be listening to this presentation. You'll notice this website is a little more complete than yours right now. Everything is there. I'm looking at it and showing it to you from the instructor's point of view. From the student point of view, you'll see some fully darkened in digital text, and then you'll see some faded text. And the fully represented text is that which you can click on and operate on. I think the very first thing you need to do to unlock the other next section of the course is just your introductory survey. It tells us that you're serious about taking this course. This is called your enrollment verification quiz. So take that, and some other things will open up for you. And then as we progress through the course, each module or segment will reveal itself for you to take action. I do want to spend a minute or so talking about, well, introducing myself before we begin, and it won't take very long. I'm actually running a timer so that I can be efficient. I don't want to waste your time, but I want to address your questions, so let's make this valuable. My name is Ken Bandy. B as in Baker, A as in Apple, N as in Nancy, D as in Delta, and Y as in yellow. Now, some of you are in law enforcement or safety, and you know that I didn't use the right code words to signify those letters, but it's as close as I could get. People misspell that. I'm not upset about it, but I do want you to know how it is spelled. And it's pretty simple once you actually see it. I love learning. Learning is one of the most important, well, it's probably the most important part of my life. Number one, you and I cannot help but learn because of the way our bodies are designed, our brains. And so learning happens. And we're predisposed to organization. We learn in certain ways, we categorize information in certain ways, and we look at the world according to those categories. Guess what? That's an organization. And I love learning. So I studied communication, and then shortly after completing that degree, I don't know if I'd never heard it before or if I just wasn't paying attention, but I picked up on the term organizational communication, and it fascinated me. And I did a little bit of background research, and within 3 years I was in a master's program in organizational communication, and I loved it. It helped me answer a lot of questions about why people behave the way they do in the workplace. What a mystery. But there are reasons for it, and I enjoyed learning about it and thought I'm going to go teach OrgComm to people throughout the world. So I then went to seminary. Well, that's kind of a wrong turn, don't you think? Not really. I went off to Dallas Theological Seminary because I believe that God created these bodies and He created these minds. And they were designed with specific purpose. And because of that, I wanted to understand how the Scripture informs us as communicators and as actors in the workplace. And so I studied there for 4 years, completed a PhD in corporate training and organization development. Now that's the street term or phrase for that degree. It's actually instructional technology and development. A third of the program was research, which is what PhD programs are centered on. The other third of it was in instructional design. I think I mentioned to you in my email message to you that I designed this course and several of the other courses in this master's program. They're very specific ways of developing learning activities so that people get the most out of them that they can. And I love my colleagues, but if they studied physics or biology or history or French or any other topic and did not study instructional design, they're at a little bit of a disadvantage. And also, their expertise can sometimes in their subject matter can sometimes overshadow how people learn, and it can be difficult. And I've had a handful of professors in my life who forgot more than I could ever probably learn, but their ability to communicate it and organize the assignments was a challenge. So I hope you won't find that issue. There is an evaluation in this course, and I would love for you to give me good feedback. I learn from that feedback, and I want good feedback, and I look forward to your creative and constructive feedback to me at the end of this course. Let's see. I did the PhD, did my dissertation in online decision making, and the other third of my doctoral program was organizational behavior. So we've got how people learn, how people organize to accomplish tasks, and then how to research all of that. I wasn't finished. I did a master's degree in business administration. I did not really ever teach in a communication program. My first job was teaching in business students how to communicate, managerial communication, and then also some information technology based upon the instructional technology background that I had. And I thought, well, if I'm going to teach in business programs, why don't I study some more? And so I did the MBA from Texas A&M University System, and still wasn't finished. Really have studied a little bit of philosophy, and then I'm in the fourth course of a 4-course certification program in finance. It's a graduate certificate in finance, and I just learned over the years that clearly finance, the ability to attract dollars, use your dollars well, really is what makes your business viable. And then, of course, communication and organization and the psychology of work and the motivation, all that come together after the dollars are in place. So I've continued to study. And there will be probably something else that I study when I'm finished here. So that's general area. Again, 25 years of teaching. I've taught at Morehead State University, Laterno University, obviously Multnomah, Texas A&M System, Fresno Pacific University, Southwest Baptist University. I was the Dean of Business at Southwest Baptist, and I was the Associate Dean of Academic Affairs at Pfeiffer University, Vice President of Academic Affairs for Charlotte Christian College, and then I stepped away from that, got back into teaching, just straight teaching again, and then my wife and I have just moved from North Carolina to Missouri. We lived here before when I was the Dean at Southwest Baptist, and we just liked it. Our kids have grown up. They've done very well. And we're just thankful to the Lord for his guidance in their lives. And now the two of us just said, where do we want to live? We've raised them. They've moved out. One is in college. The other one is working. So where do you want to live? And we chose Springfield, Missouri. She has a job here. I'm teaching. Probably will work full-time at some point. But right now I'm just happy to be teaching online with you. Something I always hope to do, even if I have one of those regular jobs. So we'll just see how this goes. All right, so let's work our way through this. I do want to tell you a little bit of a story. We're at 8 minutes in here, so 9 minutes, so I'll keep this little story brief. I got my first job as a buyer. I was a contract specialist for the U.S. Department of Defense out in Sacramento, California. I bought all kinds of things. And I had to go through significant training because it was just a new world to me. I was a new college graduate, and they put me through about 90 days of classroom training on the law of contracts, how to write contracts, how to negotiate contracts, how to price contracts, how to document contracts. And of course, this is government work, so it had very specific laws, procedures, regulations in store for me. So a year or so in, my parents, way back from Ohio, said, hey, we want to come visit our son who's living in Sacramento. So they hopped the plane, came out. We did San Francisco. We did the mountains. We did all kinds of things. And then on a particular day of the week, we had some free time. We went to a place called Old Sacramento. And at Old Sacramento is the California Historical Society's Railway Museum. And so we thought, yeah, we got some free time. It was getting ready to rain, I think. So we thought, this will get us out of the rain for a while. Threw down our $5 each, and we went in and had a great time. Learned a lot about the railroad, how it was built, all that. And they had some models. They had some actual trains inside. So I was walking through a train, and then I had to leave the train. They didn't let us walk through a certain display of the caboose. We had to look at it from the outside. So I was standing on a platform looking into the big caboose door, and I saw a wax dummy figure, and I saw a desk, and it was representing the 1800s of what the rail meant to the development of California. And I looked on the desk, and I saw purchase orders. And I saw bills of lading. And I saw a ledger with tracking information on it. Talk about deja vu. That's what I did every single day as a buyer. I received a requisition. I organized that into a solicitation for bids. I received the bids. I evaluated them. I set up the contract. Each of these things had a number. And in the due course, it ended up with a bill of lading. It had an invoice. It had all the things that I saw represented on that desk from over 100 years before my experience. In other words, I wasn't doing anything new. These administrative processes had been around longer. In fact, I have a book on the history of administrative processes. There are documents and records. There are transaction reports that go back thousands of years. As we work our way through the course, we'll talk about, from time to time, the book of Nehemiah. And I want to challenge you. Every time we get together, I'm going to pop up a section of the text of the book of Nehemiah, just a section, and we'll talk about the administrative processes, the leadership principles, the organization design decisions that Nehemiah employed in order to accomplish a very significant task. What we're doing here in this class is not brand new. As I said, we are created, I believe, in God's image. Our very neuron cells, are designed, positioned according to a DNA sequence in such a way that our sensory systems can receive and organize information in a certain way. And as we develop and mature, the front part of our brain engages strategic activities that allow us to think about the future and what we want the future to be like. This fascinates me. I hope that it fascinates you. You were designed to organize, and you were designed to innovate. Now, none of us were designed to be despots or kings. We were designed for community. So we can all have visions that are different. We can all envision a future that's unique, but in order for us to be actually successful, we have to work together. So in that, we see individual responsibility to develop ourselves, to prepare ourselves to make a good contribution. We see the requirement that we must work together as team members, as part of a community, and we must agree and then create a vision for the future and work to support that, to supply that vision, to organize the resources in the most efficient way so that we can realize our future gains and objectives. So with that in mind, I'm fascinated by it. I hope that you are. And with that in mind, let's go through our syllabus here, and then we'll match up some of the issues in the website. All right. So you've probably seen these before. This might be the first course in the master's program for you. I want you to read in more detail the things that I just brush over. I'm trying to be efficient. I hope that my little 5 to 7 minute journey through that experience with the train and the organization and all that stuff. I hope that shows you that I'm passionate about the subject and that it's not time wasted. There's some just how you were created is so important to whether you can be successful as an organizational consultant or a performer in a complex organizational environment. So we have a mission statement. Our mission is to equip Christian students through higher education to become biblically competent, academically proficient, spiritually formed, and culturally engaged servant leaders shaped to be a transforming force in the church, the community, and the world. That attracts me to Multnomah University, and I hope that that's why you are attracted to be a part of this program. The diversity statement. We consider the diversity of students, faculty, and staff to be a strength. This is an organizational concept. If we all were exactly the same, we would produce similar types of conclusions. We wouldn't be diverse thinkers, and we would not be able to be good problem solvers. So, the university expects every member of the university community to contribute to a respectful culture in the classroom. I just told you that the mission of the school is to equip Christian students. Well, we're all at different levels of maturity, and there's no limit to faith with respect to whether we allow students to matriculate to the program. You may not be a committed believer. It's probably true that you are, statistically speaking, because most people understand the mission of Multnomah before applying. But it could be that it's like, hey, it's a nice place. They have a good reputation. I don't really buy all the theology stuff that they have to offer, but they're going to welcome me in. And that is true. You are welcomed in. And here's the thing, though. I am going to consistently refer to biblical concepts, theological concepts, and their implications. This is not to be threatening. This is not to drive a wall between those who are believers and those who are not. It's meant really for me to entice you, to challenge you in a positive way. If you have questions, or maybe you think that God exists, but he's not very active in your life, he's not very engaged in the world, you just sort of believe it on Sunday, and then the rest of the week you're sort of on your own, let me tell you, we're going to talk about things in this class that will challenge that. It's not the main purpose. The course title is not how the Bible will make us more successful at work. We're going to study the real theoretical, scholarly, academic principles related to organization design and innovation, and we'll see if and when certain principles from the scripture match up, and then what that should tell us about being effective in organizations. So all are welcome, and this will be, on my side, the most respectful relationship that I can possibly achieve. I'll go the extra mile for that. Because I want you to do well. If we walk out of this room and you still don't have any sense that there's an active God in the world who's engaging you and your life, that it won't be because I offended you, because that's not what I'm after. That would be wrong, and I don't want to do that. Dimensions of diversity can include race, color, class, age, national origin, ethnicity, gender, disability, primary language, denominational preference, veteran status. In addition, we seek to cultivate a classroom environment that fosters inclusion and respect. And so we all have something to contribute, different levels of experience and different perspectives on the world. And I want to incorporate all of your viewpoints and match those viewpoints up against the concepts in the textbook and biblical principles. There's our course description: understand design, innovation to better position an organization. Here's the required textbook. By the way, over here on the right in this tab, you'll see this is the Vital Source version of the textbook. It's cheaper and it's harder to manage. I mean, I honestly like a hard copy textbook. I just like it. Doesn't have to be hardback, but just a physical textbook. I like that. I can write in it. I can take pictures of certain sections of it and post it to my social media pages and comment on it, whatever. But I moved. My things are in storage, and my physical textbooks are in boxes in a storage facility several miles from my apartment right now. So, ta-da! I had to ask for a copy of the digital. But it's... I'm not telling you that I recommend the hard copy. I'm telling you my preference. So if you've chosen it because it's your preference or it's convenient or it fits your cost expectations, use it, and you'll be fine. There's no question there. You'll probably have to be near your laptop computer or your tablet or desktop, but this will not keep you from succeeding in the course. Recommended resources: the American Psychological Association's publication manual. That'll probably cost you, I don't know, $30 or $40 or $50. I haven't priced one for a long time. Guess what? You can get all that stuff for free if you go to your search engine, type in the word Purdue, as in Purdue University, but just type in Purdue, P-U-R-D-U-E, OWL, O-W-L, the Online Writing Lab, O-W-L. And they keep, they have an organized website to help you understand and apply the requirements for the APA publication manual. It's cheap and it's everywhere your computer is, so that's good news. Everywhere your internet access is, let's put it that way. And then a writer's reference to help you address the issues of how to write, organize your material, etc. I don't teach writing in this class. I've taught it before. I expect good paragraphs. I expect coherent sentences. I expect thesis statements. I want the first paragraph or sentence of every paragraph to be informative regarding what's going to happen next. And I want efficiency. But those are skills that we theoretically learned at the undergrad level, even in high school, I suppose. I'll grade as if you've done well in a writing course at the college level. Let's go to the next section, course expectations. It's your responsibility to know these expectations, which is coming next, and the procedures and the policies. By the way, you can click on these hyperlinks and they will take you to their designated address. So all of them work. I tested those. So if you need any assistance in learning, click on these, make the phone calls. Disability services, the American Disabilities Act requires, and also we want as a university to help people who are challenged with some learning dimensions, stress management, cognitive challenges. None of those mean that you're not welcome and that we don't want you to succeed. But there's a policy on that. So please click on the Disability Services link, follow the policy. That will help us make sure that we're creating a fair playing field for everyone, that those who require additional time on tests or testing environments, different testing environments, can get that where we can make that convenient for those who need it, but not for everyone, right? Library resources, you can click there. Here are the course outcomes. Define, let's just look at these keywords at the front here. Define, describe, use or apply, analyze, develop, and lead. Okay? That's good instructional design. Think about that. The lowest level of learning is number 1. The highest level of learning is number 6. And when you leave this class, you ought to be able to have an intelligent conversation, whether it be in an interview or when you're consulting as an internal informal consultant. Someone calls you and says, what would you do about this? Hey, you ought to be able to know the terms and concepts, be able to look at what's happening in an organizational situation and categorize those behaviors and sort of see the cause-effect relationship in those behaviors, whether it's human behavior, mechanical behavior, or as a result of a flow of information between, say, computer systems or computer systems and people. You should use models and theories, all right, to help you understand what's going on in a situation. You should be able to analyze at 3 levels: what's happening to the individuals, what's happening to the group, and what's the implication for the system. All right, you've probably heard this word, bureaucracy. When I worked for the federal government as a buyer, it was a steep, heavy bureaucracy. And I had to follow very specific procedures. I didn't enjoy that. I like sort of running my own shop, you know? So I did that for a few years and decided that I would go into something with a little more freedom. But that bureaucracy started 500 years earlier, probably longer ago than that. Not just the United States government, which is only 230 or 40 years old, but the ideas of government and the bureaucratic models. We'll see some of those, the French models, the administrative science models, the bureaucratic models. Those have a long history, and they have problems, and we've identified those problems. That's why when you go to the Department of Motor Vehicles, in many cases, you don't feel very appreciated, all right, because of some of the dynamics that occur in a heavily bureaucratic organization. Not trying to pick on anybody, but I think that's something that we can all relate to. So we analyze, we develop an assessment scheme. So I want you, as part of your field activity in this class, we'll talk about that in a moment, to be able to create a checklist or a thought document that will guide your thinking as you analyze a situation. That sounds kind of challenging. It won't be as hard as you think. I don't demand perfection. If you were a practicing consultant with 5 or 10 years or more of experience, you would have a definite preference for what goes in that evaluation document. Today you don't. I'm assuming that, right? Maybe there is a professional consultant in our class. Chances are that's not true. So what I want is for you to begin to develop that skill. And so take it as a way to learn. I could have asked you to just simply evaluate a situation. No, I want you to think about how to evaluate an organizational performance situation. That is more valuable. When you walk, at this point, when you walk away from the experience, you'll say, well, I don't want to do X because I tried that and it didn't match very well to what I was trying to do. Doesn't mean that I assume that you're not going to do well. It just means you'll want to reshape it after you're done. And that's good. You'll have knowledge from experience to help guide the future assessments and evaluations that you will undertake. That's what learning does. It makes us ready for action. And then I want you to be a leader. When we get together on, at this point, Thursdays, we may have to change that based on everybody's work schedule, but we'll figure that out over time. I want you to be in the sessions, not just, I mean, you have the freedom. There's no penalty for not attending the sessions. You have 48 hours after we have a session to answer some questions and that sort of thing. But we'll have a lot more fun and we'll learn a lot more. You will process information better in the live discussion than in the write-up that I'll ask you to do if you missed that session. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So these are the learning outcomes. This is where we match the learning outcomes to the content in the book and then how you'll be measured for your competence level with this material. Again, good instructional design. I didn't create all this. I'm a student of instructional design, and my boss and your program director, Dr. Steve Holler, understands these things. So when he contracted with me to write this course, he said, we will have Bandy, we will have an outcome and assignments table. He understood that. And so I met his expectations. But this is what I would have done anyway. This is the two of us putting our heads together to really make sure this was a good class. And then we go through the assignments. Now, I'm going to click over here on assignments. And my little system is thinking. slow connection that I have today. Those will pop up in a minute. In the meantime, we have a list for every single week. So I'm not going to go through all of these. I will go through week 1. This week, participate in the self-introduction. I want to know who you are. Read chapter 1 in DAFT. All right, that's our content. There is a quiz. Now, I know not everyone has the book right now and may not be able to take the quiz right now. So hustle. Some of you may choose to get the digital copy of the textbook simply because that's the quickest way you can get it. On the other hand, if you've decided to wait, I will work with you this week. I can float these dates a little bit, but I don't want to have to do that during weeks 2, 3, 4, whatever. That should not happen. So there's a reason that we only cover 1 chapter in the first week. From there on out until the end of week 7, we cover 2 chapters a week. So you'll be, I encourage you to do something every day in this course. Some of you may prefer to take Sunday as a full day of rest. That's up to you. I'm not going to require you to work on Sunday, but all of the regular due dates for all the activities are Sunday night at 11:59. So you may choose to do it. I'm not trying to tempt you if this is an issue of spirituality for you. But you know today everything that's due by Sunday midnight, so you can work ahead. That would be your responsibility to avoid working on Sunday if you don't want to do that. But let's talk probably Thursday night when we get together for the first time online and discuss who has books, who doesn't, and what kind of help I can give you to make sure that you don't lose points on that. But week 2, by the end of week 2, you should have your materials. And then we'll talk together. So look at what we have over here. Here's our online sessions all clustered together. They all say worth 100 points. It's 15% of the total. So if you got all of the points for each one of these sessions, you would earn 15% of the total course value. Here are all the quizzes. They're 10% of the total. That's not a lot, but what I'm trying to do with those quizzes is make sure you read the book. And so you can do mostly well on those and it won't hurt you at all. Just make sure you put your nose in the book and that you're thinking as you're reading. That's what I want out of those quizzes. These are randomly generated quizzes. So there's a big pool of questions and you take the quiz and who knows what questions you're going to get. I mean, there's a finite list. There's 40 or 50 questions, but in the pool, and then you get a handful of those. So really, it's about you reading the book and being ready. And it's an open book quiz as well. But people are tempted to not read it at all, just rely on the quiz. Well, guess what? The exam is a randomly generated product as well. And it will pull questions that you don't face in the quizzes. So this is to get you thinking, get your nose in the book. You'll see discussion forums. And that's in addition to the weekly live session. So this is where we type. I will post sections of Nehemiah in there. I will ask you to tell me what you're thinking about different things. We'll talk our way through that. And there are topics for each of these. Recent changes, different way to do business, connecting service product offerings, turning data into cognitive building blocks. Like I said before, organization starts in the mind. Resisting change, and then failure. Failure is a wonderful thing. Failure helps us. If we have our head on straight, if we work hard, we're prepared, we make legitimate decisions using the resources available, and then we fail, we're not desperately sad. There are some situations we get into in business and in life where if we fail, it is a true catastrophe. But usually that situation is set up by a series of other decisions that we've made. Maybe a failure to learn. So let's not get there. Let's do our best on all the small decisions, have a good overall strategy, and then hopefully we won't face that. Now, there are things beyond our control, economic circumstances, social circumstances, natural catastrophes, hacking, just all kinds of things. But we do the best we can. And then part of the Christian faith is called forgiveness and grace. And that's where, we do our best and we live with less than perfection. And we know that each person is a work in progress and each process is a work in process. There are case studies, 2 of them. Now, again, 10% of the total. The reason that there are 2 of them is because the first time you attempt a case study, maybe it's been a while, you won't nail it, right? There'll be good elements. We'll be matching some models, theories, and ideas to this case situation. And we'll talk through it, work through it. You'll complete it. I'll grade it. I'll give you good feedback. And then the second time you do it, you ought to be better. You ought to be stronger as an analyst. So that's why there are 2 of these. The dates are listed on here, November 10th and December 24th, or November 24th. Finally, there's 3 more things. Field observation and report. We talked about that a little bit. We'll come back to this document and go through that. There's a current issues paper. What's going on? All right, I'll give you a little example of that. And then we have a final exam. It is an exam, all right? It's worth 20% of the total. So everything that we do will prepare you for some level of knowledge. Remember, the course objectives were organized according to an increasing level of knowledge from items 1 through 6, and that's how the course is organized. I'm not going to go through everything we do every week. You can read that. People are very interested in the discussion forums, interested in the details for every assignment. And so that's what I am doing here. You're expected to make in the discussions relevant, significant contributions to each forum. We start, of course, with your self-introduction, so please do that well. Let's be teammates, not just spectators, all right? You can help each other. A lot of this work, clearly, you do it on your own. But when you're in the discussion forums and you're in the live interactions, you can ask each other questions, encourage one another, thank one another for their contributions to you. Let's create a community out of this, work together. And by the time you get to the end of the program, you may have a new cadre of colleagues that you can trust and count on and rely on, and maybe support each other for many years to come, maybe even end up working together professionally. So what I do is I set it up so that the initial post for any of the discussion issues should be posted by 11:59. That's 3 days before the due date. What that does is it gets grist on the millstone. Your initial take on the discussion question at hand. And that means that when you wake up on Friday, you can respond to other people. If we wait until Sunday, there's no time. We don't have a quality discussion. So again, you really do need to start every Monday with the new material. Don't put it off for 2 or 3 days. You have a busy life, but have some fairly focused goals to say, hey, for lunch, I'm going to read this. On the way home, I'm going to think about it. When I get home, I'm going to maybe make a post or make a contribution or take a note or 2. And then by the time I go to bed, I will have contributed to the discussion forums Monday or Tuesday. Just really aim for that. The online sessions then are right now, Thursday night, 7:30 your time on the West Coast. Now, some of you maybe had a student last year who was in Maryland. So when I said your time on the West Coast, she said, wait, I'm over here. So you'll have to make that adjustment. I'm in Central Time. So that means I'll start these sessions at 9:30 my time. Sadly, it'll be 10:30 Eastern Time. And they go for 90 minutes. And I will run a clock just like I'm running right now. Right now we're at 39:44. So I'm trying to keep track of my time. Let's see, the case analysis assignments give us an opportunity to imagine what it's like to face situations outside of our own experience, but that are encountered by leaders in other situations. These are pretty straightforward. They're in the book. You answer the questions from the book. So it's not, we're not modifying this assignment at all. Okay? I am interested in how you write. Remember we talked about the relationship between how we think and organizations. Guess what? How you write is an organization. We're taking random thoughts or thematic but not quite coherent thoughts. We're putting them on paper in a certain way which organizes our thoughts. And if we can do that, we're ready then to project our thoughts onto a live situation. So I'm looking for grammatic quality, paragraph organization, that sort of thing. The field observations and report. Our course addresses many abstract concepts at the high, low, and other varying levels. For example, organizational structure can be expressed and observed quite easily in some organizations, while in others it's difficult to observe accountability relationships among members. All right, so if we have a bureaucratic organization, we know where everybody sits, where they are on the org chart, who they're responsible for, and what the limits of their authority is. In a flat and flexible organization, none of that is true. Individuals have any ranges, a possible range of responsibility, authority, and boundaries. All right, maybe no boundaries, or maybe very few boundaries in terms of what they can do and what they can access. So, understanding the culture of an organization usually requires months or years of ongoing engagement with its members. Even the employees who work at an organization do not fully capture the subtlety of organizational culture. So practice using structured observations provides a foundation for identifying important organizational behavior factors that explain how and why some organizations succeed while others do not. So to complete this activity successfully, you must sample the ongoing activities of a business, a nonprofit, a government agency, another entity with a sense of purpose, whatever that sense of purpose is. Could be a club, could be a frisbee club on the campus that travels to other schools and does competitions. With a sense of purpose and ongoing operations designed to achieve its purpose. And that's all I'm going to read of that. But that's the big picture. And then partway through the class, we'll launch this. I'll explain it again in more detail. And you're making observations, and then you're going to create your own way based upon what you've learned in this class to make those observations. All right, that's where we're going with that. So you learn the process, and this takes some pressure off of you. There's no one right answer to analyzing an organization, but some answers are better than others. Some are more comprehensive than others. Some are more accurate than others. Some cost lots of money. Some cost just some time. So you don't have to be right. You just have to develop a sense of how to do it, and then you get better over time. I hope that makes sense. Then we have a current issues paper. Case studies. No, I'm reading the wrong section. I flipped my page. Many evolving factors and circumstances can impact an organization's operations. Cultural and legal issues, technological advancements, the changing nature of the workforce, economic conditions, regulatory decisions, all those things can impact how an organization functions and operates. So I want you to select a topic. This is the closest thing you get to a research paper in this class related to org design, and discuss with me. Let's talk about it so that I know that it's a topic that is probably achievable. I had the habit of picking topics that were too large, and some people do that. Some others have the other challenge. They just don't know what to address, and they're a little concerned in topic selection. So we'll work together to make sure that you can do this, and I don't want you to bite off more than you need to chew, but I also want you to learn from it. So we'll make sure that that topic is appropriate. The topic should be focused and narrow to explore, but understand the development and their impact on the organization life as well as the culture more broadly. You're not analyzing a real situation here. You're just addressing a topic. I'll give you an example here in a minute. So conduct the research, which means basically clicking on that library link and pulling some topically based literature. It doesn't have to be more than 10 pages long. I'm sorry, it should be more than 10 pages long, not including the title page or the reference sheet. So it'll be substantive but not huge. And then use the APA style manual. Now, my wife has worked as a business systems analyst for many years, and she's good at it. She's been a vice president leading other business systems analysts. Right now she's working for a major auto parts retailer as a business systems analyst, and she's working on their online purchasing and ordering system, retail purchasing and ordering system. And but in one of her previous jobs, she worked in an environment that used what they call agile development. Now, agile development has about a 25-year history. It is a lot of companies now in the world of software design are beginning to use it. And there are some rules, some ground rules and methods that are used. What happens if the organization doesn't use them properly? And that happens a lot. It's an open source type of a process, so you can pick and choose what you want. And with her last organization, they said they were using Agile, but guess what? They were not. Basically, they were using self-directed teams, and they weren't supporting the required methods properly. In other words, the supervisors were not supervising. People of the team could just do whatever they wanted to do. They did have weekly stand-up sessions where they said, okay, last week I worked on X. This week I will do X sub 1 or Y. In other words, I completed X or I have to do more X. So they at least say out loud what they're doing. But she began calling it agile non-development because they were not making progress. The work wasn't being fairly distributed because no one was distributing. People were just stepping up and saying, I'll do X or I'll do Y or I'll do Z. And they had job titles. Some were developers, some were analysts, some were documentation specialists. But they were they had varying levels of interest, let's put it that way. And a broader issue here is this particular company had one client, and it was a state government. So basically, it was a footloose, fancy-free organization supporting a large bureaucratic structure. So the relationship between the two was simply, if you guys deliver, if the company delivers what we ask for, close to what we want, on the schedule pretty much that we want, we'll leave you alone. And so this allowed the agile developers to mess around a lot. And consequently, in a 4-month period of time, out of the 30 to 35 people in that unit, 15 to 18 resigned. The ones that didn't resign were those who liked to mess around. And so when it came time for my wife and I to say, hey, our kids have moved on, they're still in our lives, clearly, but we're not responsible for their day-to-day care. Where do you want to live? What do you want to do? Get this. We have an organizational system that's failing. We have a worker who cares about her job. And because she cares about her job, she says, no, I don't want to do this job anymore. But I don't want to just jump ship and take the next best thing that comes along. I want to make a good decision. So that led to the overall big picture of, where do you want to live? What would you like to do? What's next for us? Did you notice what happens at work impacts how we think at home? It doesn't mean that we use agile processing to do dinner. It means as we engage in our lives, we at work, we experience levels of satisfaction or dissatisfaction. We feel that we're a good fit or we're not. We either go to work with energy and say, yes, I like being here and I really want to do this, or not. Now, there are different varying levels, right? But because of that level of dissatisfaction, we were then approaching the next question. Okay, what do you want to do? So that would be an interesting topic. I'm not telling you to do this topic, by the way. I'm giving you an example. And there are many issues out there, organizational designs that may or may not work, new ways of working, the gig economy. What does that mean to organizational design and structure? What are the motivators? What are the demotivators? How do we assure quality? Does competition come into play? How is this competition measured? And what are the models and theories that we've covered in this class at the individual, group, and system level that either support or don't support this new idea of how to organize? So these are ideas. Again, let's talk. The first thing I'm going to do, if you and I talk, and we should talk on the phone, or at least a good substantive email exchange or chat exchange, is if you say, oh, Ken, I'm going to do Agile. I'm going to say, no, I brought up Agile. Tell me why you want to do Agile. And no matter what it is, I'll ask you why and all that. But I want you to choose something that's related to your career, that's related to your area of interest, that will make you better in the future as an organization designer and innovator than you are currently. And when I use language like that, that doesn't mean that I think you're not good. I just want you to be better. All right? We can all get better. I get better every time I teach the class or apply the principles. So that's an example of a current issue paper. The next page, I'm at 52 minutes, gives us our evaluation criteria. And you can also see that over here, the points and then the percentage, so those should match up. And then this is the overall here on the last page, page 10 of our syllabus. These are program objectives, and my job is to match not 100% of them, but the whole collection of 10 or 11 courses together should address all 6 of these program level objectives. Students will be able to demonstrate knowledge of major management and leadership theories. Yes, we'll cover that in this class. Students will synthesize and use multiple tools. Yeah, we're going to do that in this class. Demonstrate how to mitigate, manage, and transcend conflict. We're probably not going to really address that directly in this class. You'll see the change management and then resistance to change as we get to the end of the course. Conflict concepts will come up, but it's not a major focus of what we're doing. Like I said, all courses in the program taken together should weave together to give these competencies by the end of the program. So this one is not going to be very focused on number 3. Students will be able to describe how their Christian worldview influences their ethics of organization management and leadership theory and practice. Again, we go back to what does the Christian worldview have to say? Well, I've already started this process by saying God created us. We have these neural cells. We have these mirroring neurons. We have this pre-organizational predisposition to accept information, categorize it, organize it, and then that turns around and shapes how we view the world. So if you take a different view that we are just random acts of chemical accident, there would be no sense of purpose for us to be here. The whole idea of organizing and using organization to further our humankind or our families or whatever, it would more or less be optional. Why do we treat people fairly? Why do we give people good value for their money? Why do we care about being efficient? Why do we care about going to the office or the job site and putting in a fair amount of work for the wage and the benefits that we receive? Well, if you take the God idea as the premise for, and his creation as the premise for your existence, that's the foundation for ethics and morality. If we take the random acts of creation approach, since we don't answer to anyone, I guess our goal is to maximize our position, which may mean disadvantaging other people. So you have to work really hard to come up with an ethical foundation if you don't buy the idea that God created you and you're in his image and your organizational abilities are responsible to some standards. We won't talk a lot about that. In fact, that might be the longest that I talk about it. I think it'll come up from time to time. But there are other classes that more directly deal with ethics. Let's see. Students will be able to describe the practical ways that various approaches of management and leadership help individuals, groups, and diverse organizations functions. All right. That's your developing your evaluation tool and applying it, the case studies, those sorts of things. So we do address number 5 pretty clearly in this course. And then students will be able to analyze and evaluate organizational health in terms of individuals, groups, and systems. We'll plant the seeds for that in this class. What is organizational health? There's probably a model or two in this book, if I remember correctly, that talk about health. But what is health? Don't work too many hours, manage your stress well, don't place unethical demands on people. There's a lot of ways to define that big concept called organizational health. So we'll plant some seeds in that as well. All right, so we are at the end of our discussion. 56 minutes, 56 and a half, so that's not so bad. I look forward to talking more with you as we get to know each other and uncover the issues in this course. This probably is my favorite course, or at least one of my top 3 courses. Love the material, and I want you to just really benefit, all right? I really do. All right, so that's it. I'll post this. You should listen to it soon. I have sent out an email telling you to listen to the whole thing as soon as you can, so please do that. So long. We'll talk to each other in a couple of days.